You know that gut feeling? That instant primal scream in your brain that says, "Get out?" One mom listened to that voice the second she met her daughter's friend's stepdad. He was drinking while supervising the kids and making comments that made her skin crawl. She pulled her daughter out immediately, but now the other mom is coming for her. Was she protecting her child or just being judgmental? But that's just the warm up. We've also got a bride who spent over $2,000 flying her best friend to Bali for a wedding, only for the friend to treat it like a free honeymoon and skip the actual ceremony because her husband didn't feel like it. And finally, we have a dad dealing with a teenager so entitled he started eating cream cheese off a napkin just to prove a point. Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel where we break down the wildest, messiest, and most controversial Reddit AITAH stories every single day. If you live for the drama, the moral dilemmas, and watching people get absolutely roasted in the comments, you are in the right place. We are on a serious mission to hit 10,000 subscribers, and every single one of you watching helps us get closer to that goal. So please hit that like button, make sure you're subscribed, and let's jump right into today's chaos. Am I the asshole for being honest with another mom about why my daughter isn't allowed to go to her friend's house? All right, buckle up, folks, because we're about to dive into a situation that has every single parent reading this breaking out in a cold sweat while simultaneously nodding their heads so hard they might get whiplash. This is about gut instincts, protective mama bear energy, and a stepdad who is waving more red flags than a Soviet military parade. Our writer has a 13-year-old daughter named Elena, who apparently has the house. You know the one, where all the kids hang out, where sleepovers happen, where teenagers congregate like it's the cool spot in town. Elena's not even super social with a huge friend group, but she's got that welcoming home energy where kids can grab snacks and chill without causing chaos. Honestly, that's the dream. Those are the houses that shape childhoods in the best way. Now, Elena has this friend, Kennedy, who's new to the school this year, and Kennedy's mom works in the school office. This becomes relevant later, and I cannot wait to get into why. Everything seems fine on the surface. Mom works at the school, she's been polite during pickups, no obvious red flags. So when Kennedy invites Elena to a sleepover because there's a family party the next day and was allowed to bring a friend, our writer says, sure, why not? Right? Mom seems normal, works at the school, it should be fine. But then, oh boy, but then. Our writer goes to drop Elena off, and Kennedy's stepdad answers the door. And here's where I need you to really pay attention because what happens next is a masterclass in why you should always trust your gut when it comes to your kids' safety. Our writer says, and I quote, open quote, "I haven't never felt so immediately disturbed by a person," close quote. Let that sink in. Immediately disturbed. Not after a conversation, not after getting to know him. Immediately. That's your lizard brain, your evolutionary survival instinct, your subconscious picking up on about 17,000 microsignals that are all screaming, danger, danger, danger. So what does our writer do? She doesn't just drop her kid and bounce. No, she makes small talk on the porch because she needs to get a better read on this dude. Smart move. During this conversation, this man proceeds to 1. Open an alcoholic drink right in front of her while he's supposed to be the adult supervising teenage girls. 2. Flirtatiously tell her he doesn't believe she's old enough to have a teenage daughter after asking her twice how old her daughter is. 3. Tell her how similar she and her daughter look. Let me break down why each of these things is setting off air raid sirens in my brain. First, the alcohol. He couldn't wait literally 5 more minutes for this parent to leave before cracking open a drink. When he's about to be responsible for multiple teenage girls, that's not just poor judgment. That's a statement. That's, I do what I want, and I don't care who sees it, concerning on its own. Second, the flirting. This man is flirting with a parent he just met while his stepdaughter's friend is right there. He's completely inappropriately hitting on a woman who is dropping her child off for a sleepover. Read that again. He's sexualizing a mother in the context of a children's sleepover. Creepy, predatory behavior 101. Third, the comparison. And this is where my skin is absolutely crawling. He's commenting on how much the daughter looks like the mom while hitting on the mom. He's making the connection between the adult woman he's attracted to and her teenage daughter. He's literally drawing a line between his sexual interest in the mother and the physical appearance of her child. If you don't see why that's horrifying, let me spell it out. He's essentially telling her, open quote, "You're attractive and your teenage daughter looks just like you." Close quote. That's not a compliment. That's a threat disguised as small talk. Oh, and let's not forget, during this entire interaction, he demands that Kennedy change her clothes because she's wearing shorts in her own house. Think about that. Kennedy is in her own home, probably wearing normal teenage girl clothes, shorts. And this man is so bothered by it that he makes her change in front of a guest's parent. That tells me everything I need to know about how he views and controls the girls in that house. He's sexualizing his stepdaughter's clothing choices and asserting dominance over her body in public. Our writer's stomach is lurching. Every alarm bell is going off. But Kennedy's mom comes home while she's still on the porch, which makes her feel slightly better. So she leaves. When she gets home, she tells her husband that he is picking Alina up that evening because there is absolutely no way their daughter is spending the night there. And you know what? Her husband agrees. They make up an excuse about a forgotten plan and fetch Alina before dinner. No overnight stay. Hard boundary. End of story. Now, here's where our writer starts second guessing herself. She says, open quote, "I don't care if everyone thinks I'm crazy or judges me for not letting her stay on no evidence." Close quote. Excuse me? No evidence? Let me list the evidence. Immediate, visceral, negative reaction. Your subconscious picking up danger signals. Drinking alcohol while supervising children. Inappropriate flirting with a parent in a child-related context. Commenting on physical similarity between adult woman and her teenage daughter. Controlling stepdaughter's clothing in her own home. Sexualizing shorts on a teenage girl. That's not no evidence. That's a pile of evidence. That's evidence stacked so high you could climb it like a ladder. But our writer grew up being taught that if you have a feeling, you follow it. And thank God for that upbringing because it probably just saved her daughter from a really bad situation. Fast forward to last week. Our writer is at school pickup and bumps into the mom of one of Elena's other friends, someone she's casual mom friends with. This other mom mentions she hadn't seen Alina at Kennedy's house at the Sunday party. Our writer says no, Alina hadn't slept over. The other mom asks if it was because of anything in particular. Now, our writer could have lied, could have made up an excuse, could have protected the stepdad's reputation and Kennedy's mom's feelings. Instead, she was honest. She said she didn't want her daughter going over there because the stepdad gives her the creeps. She told her friend about the interaction. And you know what the friend said? She thanked her for telling her and said she'd probably do the same thing. That's it. That's the whole drama. One mom asked another mom a direct question and got an honest answer. No gossip spreading, no campaign against the family, just honest communication between two parents trying to protect their kids. But then, oh, here we go. Kennedy's mom comes outside at school pickup and confronts our writer. She says another mom is now not letting her daughter come over because of males in the house without the mother home, and that she knows it was our writer's fault because she's the one who met her husband. First of all, good. Good that another mom is also protecting her daughter. That's exactly what should happen when parents share safety concerns. Second, Second, Kennedy's mom knows it was our writer because she's the one who met her husband. So Kennedy's mom is aware that meeting her husband creates concerns. She's aware that her husband makes a bad first impression. She's aware that mothers who interact with him don't want their daughters around him. And instead of asking herself, why does every mom who meets my husband immediately not want their daughters sleeping over? She's getting defensive and attacking the messenger. Kennedy's mom then accuses our writer of being a snob because Kennedy's school on free tuition, which she gets because her mom works there, and of judging her family based on where they live. Our writer says none of that is true, but there was no convincing her. And here's the kicker. Our writer says, open quote, "I guess I didn't adequately defend myself because firstly I was in public and didn't want a scene, and second because being a snob probably sounded better than your husband seems predatory." Close quote. Ding, ding, ding. There it is. Kennedy's mom would rather believe our writer is a classist snob than face the reality that her husband is giving off predator vibes to every woman who meets him. That's not ignorance. That's willful denial. That's choosing to protect a man's reputation over children's safety. That's dangerous. Kennedy's mom that our writer is isolating Kennedy by poisoning the other mom. And our writer admits she's not sure she can say that's untrue. But let's be real. If sharing factual information about an uncomfortable interaction poisons people against your household, the problem isn't the person sharing the information. The problem is the situation they're describing. Our writer says she would want another mom to tell her if they felt uncomfortable. That's why she said something, because we're all just trying to look out for our kids. But now Kennedy's mom seemed more upset than angry, and our writer gets that this is embarrassing for her. She also knows she doesn't have any actual evidence that this man did anything, except she does have evidence. She has her own experience with him, his behavior during a 5-minute interaction, her gut instinct screaming at her, the fact that at least 2 other mothers have now had similar reactions. This isn't a baseless accusation. This is pattern recognition. Now let's talk about what's happening in the comments, because the internet absolutely came through on this one. Commenter Uscarpyrising888 absolutely nailed it. Open quote, I would rather be seen as an isolating snob than let my child get raped by a man. Close quote. Period. End of discussion. Your child's safety trumps everything, every time. No exceptions. Your reputation, other people's feelings, social awkwardness, being labeled as overprotective, none of that matters compared to keeping your child safe. Commenter Use Eternity Awaits jumped in with, open quote, this, I'll be the bad guy to protect my child any day. Close quote. And this kicked off an amazing thread about parents giving their kids permission to use them as the excuse to get out of uncomfortable situations. Commenter U Sparkle Motion 0710 shared that they've told their kids they can use them as an excuse if put into an awkward situation. They've grounded them, needed them to watch younger siblings, had them signed up for something without telling them, all to give their kids an out when they need one. They even mentioned their niece used them to get out of a sleepover where a girl brought a huge bottle of vodka and she wasn't interested in trying it. This parent is brilliant. They're willing to be the bad guy so their kids don't have to learn how to navigate peer pressure in real time in a potentially dangerous situation. They're giving their kid a safety net. That's A+ parenting right there. Commenter Eternity Awaits responded that their mom did the same thing when they were younger and it helped them develop the skills to say no without having to say no. They mentioned they finally got the balls to just say no when they were around 32. But as a teen and young adult, they didn't have the skills to navigate turning people down safely and effectively on their own. This is so important. We act like kids should just know how to assert boundaries and remove themselves from dangerous situations, but that's a skill that takes time to develop. Giving them a backup plan isn't coddling them. It's scaffolding. It's teaching them that they have options and that their safety matters more than being polite. Multiple commenters shared their family codes for come get me now situations. One had their boys call and say, my boss called, even though they didn't have a boss. Another uses random code words like oranges, worked into casual texts. These parents are smart. They're giving their kids agency while also providing safety nets. That's the sweet spot of parenting teenagers. Comment Rush Active Restaurant 506 brought up something crucial. Open quote, we don't encourage women girls to trust their instincts enough. In fact, we do the opposite, which puts them in danger because they doubt their instincts to be nice and smile. Close quote. This right here. Women and girls are socialized from birth to be polite, to not make waves, to give people the benefit of the doubt, to smile even when uncomfortable. And predators know this and exploit it. How many women have gotten into cars or gone into buildings or stayed in situations that made them uncomfortable because they didn't want to be rude? How many girls have been assaulted because they were taught that being nice is more important than listening to their gut? We need to stop teaching girls to prioritize other people's comfort over their own safety. We need to start teaching them that if something feels wrong, it probably is, and they have every right to remove themselves from that situation without explanation or apology. Commenter, you crazy pixie town, dropped some serious credentials. They work with sex offenders and have for almost 20 years. They say always trust your gut. They also understand why our writer told the other mother if something had happened to that child, our writer would have hated herself for not saying anything. Better to have been unfairly judgmental than complicit in a child potentially getting abused. When someone who works with sex offenders professionally tells you to trust your gut, you trust your gut. This commenter also points out that our writer's gut instinct was something she picked up on subconsciously that told her he wasn't safe, even if her brain couldn't figure out what it was at the time. That's how intuition works. Your brain has of tiny details that your conscious mind doesn't have time to analyze, and it sends up a flare when something doesn't add up. Uh, Commenter Tal Shar, who identifies as a dad and a man who isn't a predator, says the immediate comments about the daughter's appearance and our writer's age put their hackles up, and they weren't even there. They point out that there are some things you just don't say, especially as your first interaction. Even if you hypothetically noticed that the mom looks young and that her daughter's a lot like her, not knowing that voicing that would make someone uncomfortable or make you look like a creep is itself a red flag. This is important because it's coming from a man who recognizes how inappropriate this behavior is. This isn't just women being oversensitive or reading into things. This is behavior that other men recognize as predatory. The commenter also points out that being picky about what your daughter is wearing in her own house is also a red flag. Normal dads don't sexualize their daughters or stepdaughters' clothing. That's not protective, that's possessive and inappropriate. They conclude that this isn't just a gut feeling thing. There are observable, empirical reasons why this should set off someone's alarm bells. Our writer is clearly not the asshole, and they argue she might have been remiss to not just tell Kennedy's mom how she felt, but Kennedy's mom's reaction tells them she knows and has already developed a reflexive response to cover for him. Bingo. Kennedy's mom's defensive, aggressive reaction screams, open quote, I've had this conversation before and I've chosen my side. Close quote. Commenter you Archangel Zerial jumps in to say, open quote, the Venn diagram of cares about what his kid wears to a fault, comments on women's youthful appearance, and creep is a circle. Close quote. Not even overlapping circles, just one circle. All the same people. Multiple commenters who are dads with daughters chimed in to say they absolutely vet every household before there's ever a discussion about sleepovers. They're not leaving anything to chance. Commenter Desiree Time says, open quote, gut is just body's subconscious way of telling you something is wrong. Always listen to your gut. Close quote. But then you kiss my sass brings up something a lot of people struggle with. Open quote, but I have anxiety and my gut is always telling me to abort mission. Close quote. This is such a valid concern. How do you distinguish between anxiety and actual intuition when you have an anxiety disorder? Commenter you pees me off came through with an amazing distinction. Open quote, anxiety presents itself as questions. Am I doing the right thing? What if it doesn't go like it should? While intuition presents itself as statements. This isn't right. That person is untrustworthy. Close quote. Holy crap, that's helpful. Anxiety is future-oriented. It's worried about what might happen. Intuition is present-oriented. It's responding to what is happening right now. Commenter you/Madam Mim 13 elaborates. Open quote. So if your thoughts are about something bad that could happen in the future, anxiety. If you have a distinct feeling that something around you is unsafe right now, and it's a direct response to your present experience, it's intuition. Close quote. This is genuinely life-changing information for anyone who struggles to trust their gut because they're not sure if it's anxiety or actual danger signals. Someone mentioned The Gift of Fear by Gavin de Becker, and multiple people jumped in to recommend it. One commenter even linked to a free PDF of the original paper. For those who don't know, this book is basically the manual on trusting your instincts and recognizing pre-incident indicators of violence. It should be required reading for every human, but especially for women and girls. The book explains how our subconscious picks up on danger signals that our conscious mind doesn't register and presents itself as that gut feeling. It's not magic or paranoia, it's your brain doing threat assessment faster than you can consciously process. Commenter U Swizzlestick mentions they did self-defense training through the RCMP Violent Crimes Group, and they actually recommended the gift of fear. They note that despite not being able to explain entirely how it works, trusting your gut is the single most effective thing you can do to keep yourself safe. Let that sink in. Law enforcement recommends trusting your gut as your number one safety tool. Now, let's talk about some of the stories people shared in the comments because they're both heartbreaking and validating. Commenter U Party Custard 3125 shared that when their son was 3 and their daughter 5, their brother-in-law stopped by with a coworker. The guy gave them the creeps. They couldn't explain it, but they immediately took their kids into their bedroom to watch a movie, leaving the men to talk in the living room. When the guys left, they told their husband to tell his brother to never bring that man to their house again. The husband and brother thought they were being weird and unfair, but they listened. About 2 months later, the guy got arrested because his girlfriend found out he was molesting her young daughter, who was about 7 years old. The husband and brother said they would never doubt this person's woman's mother's intuition again. Never doubt the gut feeling. Commenter U Pretend Medicine 3703 shared that when they were a kid, they had a family friend that gave them the absolute creeps. They remember asking their mom if they could leave early because they had this intense feeling of danger. Their mom would bring it up over the years because it freaked her out. That dude killed his wife after going on a date at the movie theater and tried to hand off the gun to a buddy literally hiding in the bushes. This was about 10 years ago. A child picked up on murderous intent. That's how powerful our instincts are. Multiple commenters shared variations of, open quote, every single time I've ignored my gut, I've regretted it. I've never been wrong when I've had that immediate nope reaction to someone, close quote. One commenter who works in security mentioned that the sex offender registry is good to check, but the majority of sex offenders aren't on it. Once you've completed your sentence, you might not show up. Lifetime registry is rare. Some plea deals don't register them. This person did a background check on a guy who did 20 years on the registry for SA of an 8-year-old girl, but now has 8 children living in his home. 8 children in the home of someone who spent 20 years on the registry for assaulting a child. How is that legal? How is that allowed? The system is broken. This is why you can't just check a registry and call it good. You have to trust your instincts. You have to pay attention to behavior. You have to protect your kids like the system won't, because it won't. There was an incredible thread about how women's intuitions are stronger because of all the dangers we have to endure by just being women. One commenter in the Netherlands talks about how they have a high rate of femicide and gender-related crimes. So as a young girl, they were always made aware of their position in life and how to keep themselves safe. They point out that if you always have to assess possible dangers, you get better at it. Men don't have to develop this skill to the same degree because they're not under constant threat, so they often don't recognize danger signals that women pick up on immediately. Another commenter mentions the difference between men and women taking the dog for a walk at 10 p.m. The husband just grabs his coat and the leash and goes. The wife has to make sure she has pepper spray, make sure she has her phone, assess her route, stay in well-lit areas, be aware of her surroundings the entire time. That's not paranoia, that's survival. Several commenters brought up excellent points about the specific red flags the stepdad showed. 1. Flirting with our writer while commenting on how much her daughter looks like her, creating an association between his sexual interest and the teenage daughter. Absolutely predatory. 2. Demanding Kennedy change her shorts, sexualizing his stepdaughter's body and exerting control over her clothing in her own home. Major red flag. 3. Drinking alcohol immediately upon meeting a parent while about to supervise multiple teenage girls. Shows poor judgment at best, intentional boundary violation at worst. Commenter You Tree Hugger Frog Lover laid out a great analysis. Even if the stepdad isn't a predator, doubtful. Him telling his stepdaughter she can't wear shorts when he's around is itself something our writer wouldn't want her daughter exposed to. That mentality that girls' clothing needs to be policed for the comfort of men is harmful whether or not there's active predation happening. And the drinking while being the sole adult responsible for children, also not okay, completely independent of any other concerns. So even in the best case scenario where this guy is just awkward and has bad judgment, he's still someone our writer shouldn't want her daughter around. Multiple commenters pointed out that Kennedy's mom's aggressive, defensive reaction is itself a huge red flag. She immediately went on the offensive, accused our writer of being a snob and judging them for their economic status and where they live, tried to make it about everything except her husband's actual behavior. That's the reaction of someone who knows there's a problem and has chosen to defend the problem rather than address it. Commenter You Pocketful of Dragons makes an excellent point. Kennedy's mom's reaction makes them worried for Kennedy. If her stepdad is a creep and her mother stands by him, it doesn't sound like Kennedy has anyone at home who'll defend her from him. They hope our writer makes sure Kennedy knows Elena's house is a safe place she can come to if she needs one. This is so important. Our writer isn't isolating Kennedy by not letting Elena sleep over. She's potentially providing Kennedy with a safe space away from a dangerous situation. The verdict from the comments is absolutely unanimous. Not the asshole. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Our writer taught her daughter to use her words first, taught her daughter to report problems to authorities, personally met with the parents before allowing a sleepover, trusted her gut when something felt wrong, protected her daughter without making a scene, was honest when directly asked by another parent, gave Kennedy's mom multiple chances to address the issue, continues to welcome Kennedy into her home. Meanwhile, Kennedy's mom, married or is dating someone who gives multiple parents creepy vibes, defends his inappropriate behavior, attacks other parents for protecting their children, makes excuses instead of investigating concerns, prioritizes her husband's reputation over children's safety, works at a school where she has access to children and families. That last point is particularly concerning. Kennedy's mom works in the school office, which gives her husband access to information about families, potentially access to the school building, and puts her in a position of trust that she's abusing by attacking parents who express safety concerns. Several commenters suggested our writer should have been more direct with Kennedy's mom about exactly what her husband did and said. Tell her he was hitting on you. Tell her he made comments about your daughter's appearance. Tell her he demanded Kennedy change clothes. Tell her he was drinking. Give her the specific reasons, not just he gives me the creeps. But honestly, Kennedy's mom's reaction suggests she already knows. She jumped straight to, open quote, "You're a snob judging us for where we live," close quote. Instead of open quote, "What happened that made you uncomfortable?" Close quote. She didn't ask for clarification or details. She went straight to defensive attack mode. That's not the reaction of someone who's genuinely confused about why parents don't want their kids around her husband. That's the reaction of someone who's had this conversation before and has her defensive script ready to go. The most important thing here, and I cannot stress this enough, is that our writer trusted her gut and protected her child. She didn't care about being seen as paranoid or judgmental. She didn't prioritize Kennedy's mom's feelings over her daughter's safety. She didn't talk herself out of her instincts because she couldn't point to evidence or because she was worried about causing awkwardness. She felt something was wrong and she acted on it. That is what good parenting looks like. And when another parent asked her directly why her daughter didn't sleep over, she told the truth. She didn't spread gossip or start a campaign. She answered an honest question, honestly. And that other parent thanked her and made the same decision for her own daughter. That's using people against the family. That's mothers protecting children. That's the network of care that should exist in communities. That's women warning each other about danger, which is what we've been doing since the beginning of time. Some people in the comments mention the phrase mother's intuition. And while I get the sentiment, I want to reframe this. It's not some mystical feminine superpower, it's threat assessment, it's pattern recognition. It's your brain processing information faster than your conscious mind can articulate. And women are often better at it because we've been forced to develop it as a survival skill. We've been reading social cues and identifying dangerous men since we were old enough to walk down a street alone. It's a learned skill based on lived experience and generational knowledge passed down from mother to daughter. So when a woman tells you a man gives her bad vibes, listen. She's not being dramatic. She's not overreacting. She's picking up on signals that experience has taught her to recognize. So is our writer the asshole? Absolutely not. Our writer protected her daughter. She was honest when asked directly. She didn't spread malicious gossip or make false accusations. She simply shared her experience and her concerns with another parent who asked for them. Kennedy's mom's embarrassment is not our writer's responsibility. Kennedy's mom's husband's reputation is not our writer's responsibility. Our writer's only responsibility is to her own daughter, and she fulfilled that responsibility perfectly. If Kennedy's mom is upset that parents don't want their daughters around her husband, maybe she should be asking herself why multiple parents have the same reaction instead of attacking the parents who voice concerns. The fact that at least two parents now have safety concerns suggests this isn't about our writer being judgmental. This is about a pattern of behavior from the stepdad that sets off alarm bells in the people who meet him. Our writer did everything right. She protected her daughter, she was honest when asked, and she potentially protected other children by giving another parent information they needed to make their own safety decisions. That's not being an asshole. That's being a damn good parent. And to anyone reading this who's ever second guessed their gut feeling about someone around their kids, trust your instincts. You don't need proof. You don't need evidence. You don't need to explain yourself to anyone. If something feels wrong, it probably is. And your child's safety is worth any amount of social awkwardness or hurt feelings. Ugh. Not the asshole, not even remotely. Our writer is a protective parent who made the right call, and Kennedy's mom needs to take a hard look at why every parent who meets her husband comes away with serious concerns about their children's safety around him. Stay safe out there, folks, and always, always trust your gut. Would I be the asshole for suing my friend when she didn't come to my wedding? All right, buckle up because we're about to dive into a story that has me seething, like genuinely angry on behalf of someone I've never even met. This is the kind of betrayal that makes you question everything you thought you knew about friendship, trust, and basic human decency. So, our writer recently got married in Bali, Indonesia. Now, for those of you who don't know, Bali is not exactly a quick trip. This isn't like, hey, come to my wedding, it's 20 minutes away. This is a full on destination wedding situation. We're talking international flights, time off work, passports, the whole nine yards. But here's where our writer was actually incredibly generous. She and her husband paid for their friends' plane tickets and hotel stays. Each ticket was about $2,000 dice, and hotels were running $150 to $300 for the week. That's not pocket change, people. That's, I really want you at my wedding, and I'm willing to invest serious money to make that happen territory. The parents paid their own way, which is completely normal and expected. But the friends, our writer covered them. That's a beautiful gesture. That's the kind of thing that shows how much someone values your presence at one of the most important days of their life. Enter Gemma and her newly wedded husband, John. Now, Gemma brought John along, but paid for his plane ticket herself, which is fair enough. The writer covered Gemma's ticket and accommodation. 10 years of friendship, and our writer wanted her there to celebrate this huge milestone. And then Gemma and John did the most audacious thing I have heard in a hot minute. They didn't show up to the wedding. Let me say that again for the people in the back. They accepted a free trip to Bali, used the plane ticket and hotel room, and then didn't attend the actual wedding. When our writer asked Gemma why she didn't show up, do you know what this absolute clown said? That since they couldn't afford their own honeymoon, this was a perfect opportunity. And John, The writer can't even keep his name straight in her rage, which honestly, relatable, didn't feel like going. I'm sorry. He didn't feel like going. My jaw is on the floor. It's in the basement. It's tunneling through the Earth's crust. Let me get this straight. Your friend of 10 years pays thousands of dollars so you can attend her wedding, and you just uh, use it as a free vacation instead. And your husband didn't feel like attending someone's wedding that he was explicitly invited to, that someone else paid for him to attend. The entitlement, the audacity, the sheer disrespect of it all. This isn't like Gemma got food poisoning and physically couldn't make it. This isn't like there was a family emergency. This isn't even like she had a panic attack and couldn't leave the hotel room. No, she planned this. She decided that a free vacation was more valuable than her supposed friend's wedding day. And can we talk about how they were there for a week? A wedding is one day. One day. They could have gone to the wedding, celebrated with their friend, eaten the food, danced, taken pictures, done all the normal wedding guest things, and still had like 5 to 6 days to treat it like their honeymoon. This wasn't an either or situation. They could have literally done both. But no, John didn't feel like it. And apparently, Gemma is so far up this man's ass that she just went along with it, throwing away a decade of friendship in the process. Now, our writer is understandably hurt and considering taking Gemma to small claims court for the money spent on the plane ticket and hotel. And honestly, um, I don't blame her one bit. That's $2,000 plus that was spent with a very specific purpose to have Gemma at the wedding, not to fund Gemma's honeymoon, not to give Gemma a free vacation, to have her present at the wedding. But here's where it gets complicated, and this is buried in the writer's own explanation for why she might be the asshole. Gemma just had a baby, and John recently lost his job, and suing them would cause more financial problems. Okay, so let me process this timeline because something isn't adding up. Gemma and John are newlywed and took this trip as their honeymoon because they couldn't afford one. But Gemma just had a baby? So either she was pregnant at the wedding, which you can still attend a wedding while pregnant, just saying, or this wedding was longer ago than the writer is letting on, or there's some timeline confusion happening here. Either way, the fact that they're struggling financially doesn't excuse what they did. In fact, it makes it worse. If you can't afford your own honeymoon and someone generously offers to pay for you to attend their destination wedding, the least you can do is actually attend the wedding. That's literally the entire point of the expenditure. Let's talk about what the comments are saying because there's some genuinely interesting legal discussion happening here. Ooze NZA came in with a take I wasn't expecting. They said, can't believe I'm saying this, but NTA. And honestly, same energy. Because usually when you see a title like, Would I Be the Asshole for Suing My Friend? You're like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to be messy. But then you read the actual story and you're like, wait, no, sue her immediately. They point out something crucial. Gemma was offered a free vacation on the condition that she attend one event during that time. One event. And she couldn't even do that. If Gemma wanted to treat the trip as her honeymoon, she could have easily extended her stay or, still attended the wedding. You/Mr. Kitty X initially came in judging based on the title. Fair, but then said hard NTA. But the best you can do is dump that friend. I don't think the hassle is worth it. The courts will probably just see it as a gift. And this is where the legal reality starts getting murky. Because technically, legally, without a written contract, this might be considered a gift. But, and this is important, several commenters point out that you don't need a formal written contract for something to be legally binding. You/Yucklin6502 brought up a brilliant point. This could be argued as a conditional gift, like an engagement ring. If you are coming to my wedding, then I will pay for your expenses. Gemma didn't fulfill her end of the bargain by actually coming to the wedding, but she still took the airfare and hotel room. That's breach of contract, baby. You/Sherib99 pointed out that this argument would be especially strong if Gemma RSVP'd. And she obviously must have, right? How else would the writer have known to buy her a ticket and book her a room? You don't just randomly purchase international flights for people who might not show up. There was clearly communication where Gemma confirmed she was attending. There's a whole thread about whether this would hold up in court, and honestly, it's fascinating. U/Grabsy2 makes the practical point that it depends on whether the RSVP was done on paper or via text message, and whether the writer has documentation of the agreement. Word of mouth isn't strong evidence, but if there are texts or emails saying, I'm buying you this ticket so you can come to my wedding, and Gemma responding, yes, thank you, I'll be there, that's a different story. And then we have U/trying again 80, who is apparently a small claims court veteran, jumping in with, no way, it is not at all a hassle to take someone to small claims, I do it all the time. That is breach of contract and OP will win. This person goes on in the thread, explaining that they own a small business and have sued for no-show fees, sued suppliers for non-conforming goods, sued as a landlord for damages, sued people who didn't pay back loans, sued for borrowed items that weren't returned. They've never lost. Now, when someone asks what happens after you win, because winning a judgment and actually collecting money are two very different things, U/trying again 80 drops some knowledge. If they have a job or bank account, you can garnish wages or assets. If they own a car or house, you can put a lien on it. But if they're complete deadbeats with nothing, you record the judgment and let it accrue interest, and it becomes a very nasty surprise if they ever try to get a loan. This person has a $5,000 judgment that's been accruing 6% interest per year for almost 10 years. That's some long game petty right there, and I'm kind of here for it. But here's where I think the real genius strategy comes in, courtesy of Uder Innkeeper. There was a quid pro quo. If you come to my wedding, I will pay your airfare and hotel. Or if I pay for your airfare and hotel, will you come to my wedding? Any affirmative answer creates a contract, and it sounds like the writer has enough evidence to make that case explicitly. You cross the threshold backs this up. It is a contract. Verbal contracts are contracts. This is why letting a friend stay in your house for a week means you need a formal eviction if you want them to leave and they don't. And then a sladball gentleman comes in with what might be the most important legal angle. You don't even need it to be a contract. This is fraud, deception for profit. Gemma deceived the writer into thinking she would attend the wedding in order to get a free vacation. If Gemma had made some sort of excuse like food poisoning, it would be hard to prove intent. But she straight up admitted to the fraud by saying they used it as their honeymoon because they couldn't afford one. Let me say that again. Gemma admitted it. She didn't even try to lie. She just casually told her friend, oh yeah, we used your wedding as our free honeymoon. Thanks for that. Like it was a totally normal and acceptable thing to do. The shamelessness of it all. Our writer actually shows up in the comments, bless with this gem. Literally. She wasn't even in the wedding party. All she had to do was show up, dance, and eat cake and food. Funny thing enough is that they did go on a honeymoon. It just wasn't abroad. They went on a different honeymoon too. So this wasn't even their only honeymoon. They just wanted a free international vacation and didn't think their supposed friend deserved to have them at her wedding. I cannot. I genuinely cannot with these people. A slash wishy where it on it said, recoup that money, I'm all on your side. And Ooze Emergency Cat 17 pointed out that Judge Judy would find for your side in a heartbeat, which led to the hilarious observation from Oo Fortuna Redux. Wait, was Judge Judy just AMI the asshole before the internet was popular? Lamau. And Oo Agent Mayhew responded, combined with the schadenfreude of actually seeing the asshole get yelled at in person, yeah, basically. Not wrong. Judge Judy is absolutely just televised AMI the asshole with a gavel and the power to make financial judgments. And you know Judge Judy would tear Gemma apart for this. I can literally hear her voice. You took a free trip to Bali on the condition you attend your friend's wedding, and you decided to use it as your honeymoon instead? Are you stupid? Now, here's where things get real, though. Several commenters bring up practical concerns that our writer needs to consider. First, the financial reality. Yaw/Hugo Boss Lives points out, you are not an asshole. Your friend is the asshole here. But I can't see you winning any sort of claim. Legally, you gifted her a plane ticket. There was no contract she had to come to the wedding. But this is where U/Darwin or 69 counters with, judges are capable of finding an assumed condition with a gift. The classic example is engagement rings typically get returned to the man if their fiance calls off the wedding. So there is legal precedent for conditional gifts. The question is whether our writer can prove that this ticket was given with the explicit understanding that it was for attending the wedding. U/Hydra43 gets passionate about this. I really wish people would stop saying this. Contracts do not have to be formal to be enforced. A gift is something given without expectations. So this wasn't a gift. Oral contracts are considered contracts, at least under US law and many other countries. And if there are any texts and emails that say she was buying it with the expectation of her attending the wedding, then a contract would be formed once her friend accepted the ticket and hotel. She bought the ticket with the stipulation her friend was coming to the wedding. Her friend didn't fulfill her end of the contract. Now is she guaranteed to win? No, but she definitely would have a case. And honestly, I think this is the most reasonable take. Would she definitely win? No. Does she have a case? Absolutely yes. But then, impressive change 886, who works in contract compliance, brings some reality to the situation. You're also correct that oral contracts can be enforced, but they're also notoriously hard to enforce. An oral contract between two people with no witnesses or any supporting evidence is generally not enforceable because it is impossible to prove if both parties disagree or one lies. They point out that the only thing working in the writer's favor is that she made the same oral contract with many people who would likely back her up. Plus, there likely exists a paper trail in the form of emails, texts, or an RSVP. But then comes the gut punch. That being said, winning and collecting are completely different things. There is a very high likelihood OP will never see a dime even if she were to win in small claims. They recommend that unless the writer wants to do this on principle, she should view it as spending $2,000 to learn that person was not a friend and move on. Otherwise, you'll likely end up a filing fee poorer on top of the money already lost and have a judgment but never collect. And here's the kicker. The majority of all small claims plaintiffs, 55%, see no money after winning. So even if our writer goes through the entire hassle of filing, preparing evidence, showing up to court, making her case, and winning, there's still a better than even chance she'll never see a single dollar. That's rough. That's the reality of small claims court that most people don't think about. A judgment is just a piece of paper unless the other party actually has money and or assets you can go after. Given that Gemma just had a baby and John just lost his job, the chances of collecting are probably even lower. You can't garnish wages from someone who doesn't have wages. You can't put a lien on assets they don't have. But you know what? Several commenters say it might still be worth it just for the principle of the thing. Yoga/Agile Cloud 4285 makes an excellent point. It sounds like they were there for a week, so they could have went to the wedding and still pretended the rest of the time was their honeymoon. A wedding is one day. Exactly. This is what makes it so egregious. They didn't have to choose between attending the wedding and having a honeymoon. They could have done both. But John didn't feel like it, and that was apparently enough reason to completely disrespect someone who just dropped thousands of dollars on them. Scarlet Nightingale points out the absurdity, but her husband didn't want go. Why should they have to attend when he didn't feel like it? Her and her new husband both sound like assholes. The sarcasm is chef's kiss because yes, the entitlement of being like, well, my husband didn't feel like going to the event you paid for us to attend, so we just didn't go, is absolutely unhinged behavior. U/Andromeda 321 adds, even if he didn't, they could pretend he was sick from food poisoning and the friend go. That's why it's such a lame excuse. Right. Like if John genuinely had some issue, social anxiety, didn't want to travel, whatever, Gemma could have gone alone. She didn't need his permission to attend her friend's wedding. But apparently in Gemma's world, if hubby doesn't want to do something, she just goes along with it, even if it means screwing over a friend of 10 years. Spelldersizing, U/Pleasant Ask 4605 captures my exact thoughts. This is the crazy part to me. It's bad enough to skip your friend of a decade's wedding because my husband didn't feel like going, which apparently also means she can't go. But even if we take that out, you can't pretend it's a party and go show face for a few hours. I loved going to weddings as a newlywed. We'd been together a while before, but it was just fun to go to weddings as a married couple. Yes, weddings as a newlywed are fun. You get to be all romantic and remember your own wedding and dance together and be cute. This should have been an amazing experience for them. Free trip to Bali, beautiful destination wedding, celebrating love. What's not to enjoy? Unless, of course, you're just a couple of selfish jerks who see your friends as ATMs rather than actual people whose feelings matter. U/Ugoli sums it up perfectly. All they had to do was just sit there for like 2 hours and watch someone kiss and then eat all the free food. What the fuck? What the fuck, indeed. You literally just have to show up, sit down, and eat free food. That's it. That's the bare minimum. People do harder things every single day for zero reward. This is the easiest obligation in the world. U/Yawn Spawner makes an interesting observation. Who takes a free plane ticket and hotel, but turns down free food and likely free alcohol? This almost seems like they had a bone to pick and waited until this opportunity to do something. Ooh, interesting theory. Was there some underlying resentment? Some drama we don't know about? Because you're right. Turning down free food and booze at a destination wedding you're already at is bizarre behavior unless there's something else going on. Now let's talk about the practical advice our writer is getting. U/OXR Blues suggests NTA, but first start by sending her a bill with copies of the bills for the airfare and the hotel. Maybe she'll pay up without court. Worth a try. This is actually smart. Before going nuclear with a lawsuit, give Gemma a chance to make it right. Send an itemized invoice. See if she has any shame left whatsoever. If she just pays it, problem solved without court fees or hassle. Usainapiak-907 disagrees. I highly doubt that. To me, it sounds like she's not her friend at all, no doubt. I'd take her straight to small claims. But U/Thurpose counters, better for the court to say that you tried to get her to pay. And U Bang Bang the Reds explains why. For sure, giving her an opportunity to voluntarily provide restitution looks great in court. Courts are always overburdened and would rather not have another case to try, so they appreciate when someone takes reasonable steps to avoid it. This is good advice. If the writer does decide to sue, showing that she first attempted to resolve it outside of court will only help her case. It shows she was reasonable and tried everything before resorting to legal action. U/B3 and adds the crucial detail. Just make sure to do it via email, text, and not in person or over a phone call so that you have proof to use in court. Smart. Get everything in writing. Hey Gemma, you used the ticket and hotel I paid for, $2,300 total, to fund your honeymoon instead of attending my wedding as agreed. Please reimburse me for these expenses by date. And then whatever she responds becomes evidence. U/normal-height-8577 really gets to the heart of the issue. NTA, you didn't offer them a gift of a honeymoon. You offered to help them attend your wedding so they didn't have an undue financial burden. Also, they could totally have done both, spent some time together in honeymoon mode, and also attended your wedding. That they took your money and used it solely for themselves is not okay. This is the key point. The purpose of the money was explicitly to facilitate their attendance at the wedding. It wasn't a general gift. It wasn't, here's a vacation, do whatever you want with it. It was, I want you at my wedding and I don't want finances to be a barrier, so I'm covering your costs. Context matters, intent matters, and Gemma absolutely understood what that money was for and chose to misuse it anyway. U/Can I Get an Adult shares their experience. Exactly. This is always what we've done for destination wedding. Tack a couple days around the wedding for fun. Because that's what normal people do. You go to the wedding, you celebrate your friend, and then you enjoy the destination. It's not that complicated. Several people suggest that our writer should just cut her losses financially, but make sure everyone knows what Gemma did. U/Lord to hear says, $2,300 is a lot of money, but at least you now know that Gemma and John are a pair of asses. I just remove all connection with them and cherish the thought that they didn't ruin anything else. But Slash of a Mother responds, before cutting ties with them, OP needs to ask for her money back. It is such an abuse of the friendship to take $2 and then not even bother to show up for the wedding. OP needs to tell her friend that the ticket that she provided was not intended for a vacation. I'm torn on this. On one hand, $2,300 is a lot of money for most people. That's not something you just shrug off. On the other hand, the emotional energy and time required to pursue this through small claims court with no guarantee of actually collecting even if you win might not be worth it. U/Higgledy makes a depressing but accurate point. Sounds like Gemma already decided she's done with that friendship, honestly. She let OP pay her way to Bali, but didn't feel like actually attending the wedding. I don't know how you come back from that. And Son of a Mother responds, exactly. Gemma already concluded that OP's friendship is not worth the simplest of gestures, the most basic of mutual respect. OP would be losing anything of value, given how poor a friend Gemma is. So OP should go ahead and sue. This is true. The friendship is already dead. Gemma killed it when she decided a free vacation was more important than her friend's wedding. There's no coming back from that level of disrespect. So what does our writer have to lose by suing? Fresh/Victory Matcha adds, if you're done with this friendship and don't mind burning a few bridges along the way, go ahead and sue her. But if it were me, I'd be burning all the bridges. Burn it all down. And Osh, Healthy Neat 2989 asks the obvious question: who on God's green earth would not be done with this friendship? You, DC Danny, answers, I would be done with the friendship after this. I mean, obviously, right? How could you possibly maintain a friendship with someone who did this to you? This isn't a small misunderstanding. This isn't a miscommunication. This is calculated, selfish behavior that shows a complete lack of respect for you, your marriage, and your generosity. Now, there's an interesting comment from you/Heart Avocado that I think deserves attention. Are we skipping right over the option of asking Gemma to consider paying you back for the ticket and hotel room, as her behavior was hardly in the spirit of your invitation? And you/Writing Water responds with the reality, no, we're just assuming that someone who basically said, thanks paying for our vacation, LOL, we couldn't be fucked to come to the wedding, is not actually going to pay anything back just because OP asked for it. We could be wrong, but that's a pretty fair assumption to make. This is probably accurate. Someone with the audacity to do what Gemma did is unlikely to suddenly develop a conscience and voluntarily pay the money back. But it still might be worth asking, if only to have documentation of the refusal for court purposes. Illustrious Horse 276 offers balanced advice. Best advice here, give her the chance to make it right. I'd still distance myself from a friend that didn't show up for me because her husband didn't feel like it, but I'm sure even Gemma knows the intent of her ticket/hotel wasn't to fund a honeymoon. This is probably the most mature approach. Give Gemma one chance to do the right thing, document her response, and then decide whether pursuing legal action is worth it. The Judge Judy references keep coming, with you Emergency Cat 17 saying, sue. Judge Judy would find for your side in a heartbeat, and multiple people discussing whether Judge Judy is just old school AM I the asshole, which is hilarious and kind of accurate. You/Empty Style 244 makes an important clarification about the gift argument. You have never seen Judge Judy. In any case, you're wrong. OP bought her the ticket to attend the wedding, so that was the condition. And Ooge Impressive Change 886 provides some needed reality. Just so you know, Judge Judy is not a real court and should never be used as an example of the court process. The people who appear on her reality show sign a contract to agree to her arbitration. The entire gimmick of her show is that many of the items heard would never make it to an actual court, and that her judgment is often the right one, not the legal one. Fair point. Judge Judy is arbitration, not actual civil court, and she has way more latitude to make judgment calls based on what's right rather than what's strictly legally provable. But here's where it gets really interesting. Several lawyers actually weigh in. Yush Geimerstick, who identifies as a lawyer but not the writer's lawyer, and this isn't legal advice, points out, there's a lot of bullshit in the comments from people who have no idea what you're talking about, especially because you haven't even told us where you and Gemma live and what the law might be like there. This is important. Laws vary hugely by location. What would be considered a valid contract in one jurisdiction might not be in another. The writer needs to research the specific laws where she lives. They continue. If this is something you want to pursue, do some research into the cost of filing in your area and whether you're okay losing that money if things didn't work out. Or consider whether telling her that if she doesn't pay, you'll file would be efficient motivation. The threat of filing might be enough to get Gemma to pay up, even if our writer has no intention of actually following through. Sometimes the hassle of dealing with legal action is motivation enough for people to settle. Now let's talk about some of the more creative revenge suggestions, because honestly, some of these are chef's kiss. W Only Peace 1031 suggests post all over social media exactly what she did. Let the internet tell her that she needs to pay you back. Nuclear option right here. Public shaming. Let everyone in their mutual friend circle know exactly what Gemma did. Make it so uncomfortable for her that she either pays up or becomes a social pariah. Is it petty? Absolutely. Is it justified? I mean, kind of, yeah. What Gemma did was objectively terrible, and if she's going to act like this is normal behavior, maybe she needs some social consequences to understand that it's not. Recreational cry keeps it simple. You'll be wasting your own time. Just tell everyone. Short, sweet, effective. Sometimes the court of public opinion is more powerful than small claims court. Scry. Write Another Woods goes into detail. Just blast her publicly in all your friend circles. Make sure literally everyone knows what she did. Make it clear that you feel taken advantage of, manipulated, and robbed. Make sure that everyone she knows is aware of what she's done. You don't have a legal standing, but you can absolutely make her pay for this. This is honestly probably the most effective strategy, because even if our writer wins in small claims court, she might never collect the money. But social consequences? Those are immediate and lasting. Gemma will have to explain to everyone she knows why her friend is saying these things about her. And unless she can somehow spin, I used my friend's wedding as a free vacation and didn't attend the ceremony into something that doesn't make her look terrible. Spoiler, she can't. Her reputation is done. Movie Lazy 6576 says NTA. I would do it just to make her life unpleasant after I blasted her on social media. The pettiness is strong with this one. And honestly, sometimes petty is warranted. Gemma made a conscious choice to be selfish and hurtful. A little unpleasantness in return seems fair. But then we have the pragmatists who are like, this isn't worth your energy. NTA, but also not worth the effort. Just block and never talk to her again. IDK if you'd win that in court, but fuck them NTA. NTA, but unfortunately, you probably have no legal case. I'm sorry it cost you so much to find out she's not your friend. That was a shitty, selfish thing to do to you. Yedikus Prime 1 expands on this. NTA, but is this really worth your time? You gifted the plane tickets and hotel stay with no binding contract that they show up to the wedding. Your friend is a horrendous asshole, but sometimes it's better to just take the L and cut them out of your life. You're going to have bigger problems than shitty friends, and you're not likely to win at this stab back you want to take at her. This is probably the most realistic advice. Is Gemma terrible? Yes. Does our writer have a moral right to be angry and want compensation? Absolutely. Is pursuing this through legal channels likely to result in a positive outcome that's worth the time, energy, and additional money it will cost? Probably not. Alternative Balance 13 says, you're NTA for getting upset, but unfortunately you have no legal stand. Better to cut ties and let everyone know why. Several commenters bring up the engagement ring precedent again. Boom 9001 asks, wouldn't that depend on the state? Some states ruled, for example, engagement rings must be returned if the woman calls off the wedding because it was a conditional gift. Wouldn't this be no different? Obviously, states where they ruled engagement rings do not have to be returned. You definitely can't. This is actually a really good comparison. In many jurisdictions, engagement rings are considered conditional gifts, the condition being that the marriage takes place. If the engagement is called off, the ring goes back to the giver, usually, though this varies by location and sometimes by who called it off. The plane ticket could potentially be argued the same way. It was a conditional gift, with the condition being attendance at the wedding. Gemma accepted the condition, received the gift, and then didn't fulfill the condition. Divided Sky 58 expands on this. NTA. I don't know if you have a legal claim or not, though. Go through your texts and see if there was an explicit agreement that she understood and agreed that the plane ticket and hotel were exclusively to be used for your wedding. Kind of like a conditional gift, like an engagement ring is conditional. I think you have a chance if there was proof of an agreement and understanding that the ticket was given with the condition it was for the wedding. This is the key. Documentation, evidence. If our writer has texts, emails, or any written communication that shows Gemma understood and agreed that this ticket was specifically for attending the wedding, that strengthens the case significantly. If you don't know if you have a legal claim, you at least definitely have the moral upper hand. I'd let every single mutual friend know what happened. Maybe social pressure will get her to pay you back. And honestly, this might be the best outcome. Social pressure can be incredibly effective, especially if Gemma has any shame left, which, given her behavior, is questionable. LOP use/prestigious use 4550 is confident. YWNBTA. You gave her the plane ticket and hotel room explicitly to attend your wedding. She accepted them. This created a contract. She used the ticket and room but did not attend the wedding. Your so-called friend broke the contract. Take her to court. You have a good chance of winning. U/similar name 42489 agrees. NTA, you gifted conditional tickets. You can go for claims and probably win. You only gifted the tickets so that they could attend your wedding. They weren't for another purpose or a gift given just because. They RSVP'd to your wedding to get them. If they hadn't agreed to attend, you wouldn't have purchased tickets for them. Send her a bill for the cost from the receipts. Include a note identifying that you will be taking them to claims if they don't. Then follow through with it. This is a good strategy. Formal demand letter, deadline for payment, clear consequences if she doesn't pay. Very official, very documented, and gives Gemma one last chance to avoid court. Now, there's an interesting comment from you/forgot my username damn that I think deserves consideration. What do you know about Gemma's husband? Is it possible the honeymoon excuse is a cover for his abusive behavior? From the short description, it sounds like not going to the wedding was his idea. Um, if she was your friend for 10 years, maybe she needs a wellness check, not a lawsuit. Okay, this is actually a thoughtful take. What if John is controlling? What if Gemma is in a situation where she couldn't attend the wedding without his permission and he refused to give it? What if the honeymoon excuse is a cover for something darker? 10 years of friendship is a long time. If this behavior is wildly out of character for Gemma, maybe there's something else going on. Maybe instead of immediately going to court, our writers should reach out and make sure Gemma is actually okay. That said, Gemma still took the free trip and used it for herself instead of attending the wedding. And she gave a flippant excuse rather than expressing concern or apologizing. So I'm not sure how much benefit of the doubt she deserves here. Use Lost University 834-4 offers a Zen perspective. Honestly, unless you're in need of the money, I'd let this go. Same with the friendship. You might get the money back, but would it really be worth the trouble? Remember your wedding and honeymoon for the wonderful time it was, and don't let these people sour that for you. Edit. Goes without saying. Yinta. This is actually really wise advice. Don't let Gemma's terrible behavior taint the memory of what should be one of the happiest days of the writer's life. Focus on the positive, the people who did show up, the beautiful location, the marriage itself. The money is gone. The friendship is gone. Don't let Gemma take any more energy or happiness beyond that. You/charming imperfection provides a realistic but slightly cynical take. It was clearly a conditional gift, and I think any small claims court judge would agree. Um, she's already ruined the friendship, so it wouldn't be you ruining the friendship by suing her. That said, she clearly couldn't afford the tickets to begin with and likely doesn't have it to pay on a judgment. Plus, litigation is a huge headache, especially if you go pro se in small claims court, but it'll cost you more dollars, plus the headache even hiring a lawyer. Do you want to die on that hill? If so, sue her. If not, cut your losses, both monetarily and the parasite friend, and move on. Cut your losses, both monetarily and the parasite friend, is such a raw line, because that's what Gemma is, a parasite who used her friend for personal gain without any intention of reciprocating the kindness. There are some absolutely unhinged suggestions too, which I'm here for. You/Toyota for life. Cut them out of your life, then ask for advice on Ars unethical life pro tips. I'm cackling. Just straight up admitting that revenge is the goal and legal action is just one potential avenue. I love the honesty. You/Marietta Dawes has maybe the funniest prediction. She'll probably get a default judgment because Jim won't feel like going to court. And you, Open Kaleidoscope 721, responds, standard Jim behavior. Damn it. Classic Jim. The Jim slander is sending me. This man has become the villain of the story through sheer laziness and lack of consideration. Jim didn't feel like going has become shorthand for the most selfish possible excuse for not doing something. Now let's talk about what our writer should actually do, because I think there are several paths forward here. Option 1, let it go completely. Cut contact with Gemma, block her on everything, never speak to her again. Consider the $2,300 the cost of learning who she really is and move on with life. Pros, no additional time, money, or energy spent. Can focus on happy memories of the wedding and her new marriage. No risk of making things worse or more complicated. Cons. Cons, Gemma faces zero consequences for her behavior. The money is just gone. No justice, no accountability. Option 2, demand payment informally. Send Gemma a message or email explaining that the ticket and hotel were specifically for attending the wedding, that using them for a honeymoon instead was not the intended purpose, and requesting reimbursement of the $2,300 spent. Pros, gives Gemma a chance to make it right. Creates documentation of the dispute. Shows good faith effort to resolve outside of court if it does end up there. Might actually result in getting paid back if Gemma has any decency left. Cons. Gemma might tell her to get lost. Creates potential for argument and drama. Requires communication with someone who has already shown they don't value the friendship. Option 3, send a formal demand letter. Either through a lawyer or using a template, send an official demand letter stating the facts, the amount owed, a deadline for payment, and consequences for non-payment, small claims court. Pros, more official and serious than a casual request. Might scare Gemma into paying. Creates strong documentation for court, shows she tried to resolve it before suing. Cons, more formal and aggressive, completely ends any possibility of salvaging the friendship, though honestly, that ship has sailed. Might cost money if using a lawyer. Gemma might still refuse to pay. Option 4, file in small claims court. Gather all evidence, texts, emails, receipts, RSVP confirmation, anything showing the understanding that the ticket was for the wedding. File a claim in small claims court and pursue legal action. Pros, potential to get a judgment in her favor. Official validation that she was wronged. Makes Gemma deal with the hassle and stress of court. Creates a public record of the dispute. If Gemma has any assets or income, might actually collect the money. Cons, filing fees, usually $30 to $100 depending on location. Time and effort to prepare case and attend court. No guarantee of winning. Even if she wins, good chance she won't collect a dime. Additional stress during what should be a happy time as a newlywed. Potential for mutual friends to think she's being petty or vindictive. Option 5, social consequences. Let everyone in their mutual friend group know exactly what happened. Don't be vindictive or dramatic about it, just factual. I paid for Gemma's ticket and hotel to attend my wedding in Bali. She used it for her honeymoon instead and didn't attend the ceremony. I'm hurt and feel taken advantage of, and I've decided to end the friendship. Pros, protects her reputation among mutual friends, prevents Gemma from spinning a false narrative, might result in social pressure that leads to payment, warns other friends about Gemma's character, doesn't cost money or require legal action. Cons, could be seen as drama or gossip, might force mutual friends to choose sides, could backfire if Gemma has a different story that others believe. Honestly, if I were in this situation, I think I'd go with a combination of options 2, 4, and 5. Send Gemma a straightforward message. The $2,300 I spent on your ticket and hotel was specifically so you could attend my wedding. You used it for your honeymoon instead. I expect reimbursement within 30 days or I will file a claim in small claims court. If she doesn't pay, file the claim. Even if collection is unlikely, it's worth it for the principal and to create consequences for her behavior. And regardless of whether I sued or not, I would absolutely let mutual friends know what happened. Not in a gossipy way, but in a "this is why we're no longer friends and I wanted you to hear it from me" way. Because here's the thing, Gemma doesn't get to treat people like this without any consequences. Maybe she'll never pay the money back. Maybe our writer will never see a dime of it, but at minimum, Gemma should have to explain herself to her social circle. She should have to face the judgment of other people who will rightfully think what she did was terrible. And maybe, if enough people tell her how messed up her behavior was, she'll think twice before doing something like this to someone else. Or maybe she won't, because people who are capable of doing something this selfish and thoughtless in the first place usually don't develop self-awareness later, but at least other people will be warned. So, is our writer the asshole? Hell no. Not even a little bit. Not even 0.0000001%. What Gemma did was beyond the pale. It was selfish, it was thoughtless, it was deceitful, and it was a complete betrayal of a 10-year friendship. Our writer generously offered to pay for a friend's travel and accommodation, made clear the purpose was to attend her wedding, had every right to expect her friend would actually attend the wedding, is justifiably hurt and angry about being used, is considering reasonable options for recourse. Gemma accepted a ticket and hotel under false pretenses, used someone else's generosity for her own benefit, didn't even attempt to attend the wedding, gave the most insulting excuse possible. He didn't feel like it, showed zero remorse or understanding of why this was hurtful, proved herself to be a terrible friend. The math is mathing, and it's not in Gemma's favor. Not the asshole. Our is a generous friend who got burned by someone who clearly never valued the friendship as much as she did. Whether she decides to pursue legal action or just cut Gemma out of her life completely, she is absolutely justified in being furious and wanting some kind of justice or accountability. Gemma can enjoy her free trip to Bali because it cost her a 10-year friendship and whatever shred of dignity she might have had left. Hope it was worth it, Gemma. Hope it was worth it. And to our writer, I'm sorry your friend turned out to be trash. I hope your wedding was beautiful despite her absence. I hope you and your husband have an amazing marriage. And I hope you find better friends who actually value you and wouldn't dream of pulling something this disrespectful. You deserve better. You deserve to have your friend at your wedding. And you absolutely deserve to be angry about this. As for whether to sue, that's a personal call based on your financial situation, your emotional bandwidth, and whether you think there's any chance of actually collecting. But regardless of what you decide legally, you are 100% morally, ethically, and in every other way not the asshole. Gemma, on the other hand, she can take her honeymoon photos and shove them directly in the trash where they belong, right next to her ability to be a decent human being. Am I the asshole for telling a kid at the sleepover to stop acting like a brat? Okay, folks, settle in because we're about to unpack what might be the pettiest bagel drama I've ever encountered in my entire life, and I mean that with my whole chest. This is a kid having a full-blown meltdown over sesame seeds. Sesame seeds. On a bagel that someone else was already eating. Like, I cannot make this up. So our writer had his son sleepover on Sunday night, which, first of all, sleepover on a school night? That's already chaotic dad energy right there, and I'm kind of here for it. His wife is out of town, so it's him flying solo with 4 teenage boys and his daughter for Monday morning breakfast. Now, instead of cooking for 6 people, with which honestly respect I wouldn't want to either, the writer ordered a catering box from a breakfast place. 13 bagels, 3 types of cream cheese, butter, all the fixings, cucumbers, tomatoes, onions. Pretty solid spread if you ask me. He ordered 6 plain, 3 onion, and 3 everything bagels. But here's the thing about bagel orders. You can't pick your extra bagel. It's like a bagel lottery. And they got a sesame seed bagel as their bonus 13th bagel. Monday morning rolls around. The writer picks up the box, calls everyone downstairs for breakfast, and his daughter gets there first. He tells her to grab a bagel. She takes the sesame one and starts putting butter on it. Seems normal, right? First come, first served. The early bird gets the sesame bagel. Wrong. Apparently, this is where we enter the Twilight Zone. One of the son's friends comes downstairs and immediately asks why there aren't any more sesame bagels. The writer explains there's only one. This kid, and I'm going to call him Sesame Seed Sally for the rest of this because honestly he earned it, asks why the daughter got it. The writer gives the most reasonable answer in the world, open quote, because she came downstairs first. Close quote. Sesame Seed Sally says that's not fair. I'm sorry. What? Not fair? We're really pulling the not fair card over a bagel at someone else's house after they generously let you sleep over and bought you breakfast? The writer tells him there are plenty of bagels. Just pick one. But no, no, no. Sesame Seed Sally wants to know why the writer only ordered one sesame bagel. The writer explains he didn't order it. It was an extra. Sally asks why he didn't order any sesame bagels specifically, and the writer says he didn't realize they were so popular, which is hilarious because I guarantee this kid has never once in his life specifically requested a sesame bagel before this moment. He just wanted what he couldn't have. Classic brat behavior. But wait, it gets better, or worse, depending on how you look at it. This kid keeps going, on and on and on about how he wants a sesame bagel, and it's not fair that the daughter got one and he didn't, especially since he is a guest. Oh, you're a guest? Let me tell you something about being a guest, Sally. Being a guest means you eat what you're offered, say thank you, and keep your complaints to yourself. Being a guest doesn't mean you get first pick of everything. That's not how literally any of this works. And get this, at this point, the daughter is already eating the bagel, like it's in her mouth. This is now a purely hypothetical argument about a bagel that no longer exists as an available option. We're arguing about a ghost bagel. The bagel has left the building. The writer tells Sally to just pick a bagel. Sally says he doesn't want plain onion or everything. Okay, so let me get this straight. You like bagels enough to have a meltdown about not getting a sesame one, but you don't like 3 other kinds of bagels? This isn't about liking sesame bagels. This is about being a difficult little gremlin for the sake of being difficult. The writer makes a completely logical point. Open quote, a plain bagel is just a sesame bagel without sesame seeds. Close quote. Sally says that doesn't make sense. I'm screaming. That is literally what it is. The only difference between a plain bagel and a sesame bagel is the sesame seeds. That's it. That's the whole thing. And then, oh my God, then this absolute menace to society asks the writer to go back to the bagel place and get him a sesame bagel. This child, who is a guest in someone's home, who was provided with a generous breakfast spread, is demanding that the adult host get back in his car, drive to the bagel place, and purchase a single sesame bagel specifically for him because he won't eat any of the 12 other available bagels. The audacity, the unmitigated gall. This is when our writer finally snaps and tells the kid to stop acting like a brat and eat a bagel or go to school without breakfast. Honestly, he showed more restraint than I would have. I would have been like, open quote, oh, you don't want any of these 12 bagels? Cool, there's the door. Starve, close quote. But that's why I'm not trusted with other people's children. Sally then pulls out what he clearly thinks is his trump card. Open quote, you have to feed me and you can't call me a brat. Close quote, excuse me. What? First of all, no. The writer doesn't have to do anything. He already bought you breakfast, you ungrateful little sesame seed goblin. Second of all, if you're acting like a brat, people can absolutely call you a brat. That's how words work. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, I'm going to call it a duck. If it whines like a brat and acts entitled like a brat, I'm going to call it a brat. The writer handles this perfectly. Open quote, I have fed you, I can't make you eat. Close quote. Facts. There is food available, multiple food options. The kid is choosing not to eat because he's throwing a tantrum. And then, in the most petulant display of passive-aggressive nonsense I have ever heard, this kid literally puts a scoop of cream cheese on his napkin and eats it with a butter knife just to prove a point. I'm sorry, he did what now? This absolute chaos agent scraped cream cheese onto a napkin and ate it plain with a knife because he was mad he didn't get a sesame bagel. He would rather eat plain cream cheese off a napkin than just eat one of the perfectly good bagels that were available. That's not even bratty anymore. That's unhinged. That's concerning behavior. Someone call this kid's therapist because we've got some issues to work through. So the day goes on. The kid goes to school, presumably hungry because he ate straight cream cheese instead of a bagel like a normal human. After pickup, Sally's mom calls to get the writer's side of the story. The writer explains exactly what happened. Seems straightforward, right? Nope. The mom says she couldn't believe the writer called her kid a brat and let him go to school hungry. She says he should have ordered enough food for everyone. Commenter Dogzilla's mom absolutely nails the absurdity here. Open quote, I didn't get the answer I wanted, so I'm going to tell on you to your wife. She will probably ground you. Lol. Close quote. And the writer's response? Chef's kiss. Open quote, maybe she'll punish me for being a naughty boy. Close quote. I'm dead. This man said, open quote, no, you're going to tell on me to my wife, the woman I'm married to? Whatever shall I do? Close quote. The confidence, the sass, love it. Commenter U Glittering Win score 9677 asks the question we're all thinking. Open quote, did you laugh when she threatened to tell your wife? I'm a woman, and if someone tried to tell on my husband to me on such a trivial matter, I would be howling with laughter and tell her that her son's behavior was bratty and she failed in teaching him how to be a house guest. Close quote. Exactly. Like, what's the end game here? Open quote. Hello, Mrs. Ryder. Yes, I'm calling to inform you that your husband called my son a brat after my son acted like a brat. I expect you to ground him, send him to his room. What exactly do you think is going to happen here, Karen? Close quote. Commenter US Donicus points out the obvious. Open quote. And we know where the son learned his bratty behavior. Close quote. And commenter U No Technician 722 adds, open quote, like mother, like son. Close quote. Ding, ding, ding. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, and this tree is rotten. Let's talk about the actual issue here because the mom says the writer didn't order enough food for everyone. Let me break this down mathematically. 13 bagels for 6 people. That's more than 2 bagels per person, plus cream cheese, butter, and vegetables. 4 bagels were left over after breakfast. So not only was there enough food, there was too much food. Nobody went hungry except Sally, and that was his choice. He had options, multiple options. He chose to eat cream cheese off a napkin like a feral raccoon instead of just eating a plain bagel. The writer makes this exact point to the mom. There was plenty of food. Sally could have eaten cucumbers with his cream cheese if he wanted. He had options. But the mom insists the writer had no right to call her kid a brat. The writer clarifies, open quote, I only said he was acting like a brat, which he was, close quote, which is actually an important distinction. He didn't say your son is a brat, even though, he said, stop acting like a brat. One is a judgment of character, the other is a critique of behavior, and the behavior was objectively bratty. The mom gets mad and says she's going to talk to the writer's wife when she gets home. That's a weird threat, but okay. Have fun with that, Karen. Now let's dig into what the comments are saying because there's some gold here. Commenter You Trending Tatler drops some bot wisdom, as bots do, but then we get into the real commentary. Multiple commenters immediately clock that this is boy-mom behavior. Commenter Daydream Believer 8 says, open quote, you just know he's her little insufferable sunshine. Close quote. Commenter / One Feather Plume makes an important distinction. Open quote, boy moms are the worst. And I'm not talking about mothers of boys, but the ones who make their son their entire identity or coddle them into learned helplessness. Close quote. Yes, there's a difference between being a mom who has sons and being a boy mom who thinks her precious angel baby can do no wrong and everyone else is just being mean to her perfect little prince. Commenter U/G Mama drops some wisdom their dad taught them. Open quote. If you run into an asshole in the morning, you ran into an asshole. If you run into assholes all day, you might be the asshole. Close quote. Words to live by, honestly. Commenter U/Who Cool Departure 4120 gets real. Open quote. This is a child who has had his every whim catered to. When someone shut his behavior down using logic, he had a temper tantrum. Sorry if this harsh to some of you, but this kid doesn't get any more invites into your home. The expectations of servitude are too high. Close quote. Facts. This kid is used to getting what he wants when he wants it. And when someone said no, he literally didn't know how to function. He short-circuited. His brain couldn't process the concept of not getting his way. Commenter u/SinleySim points out, open quote, the invited kid was a brat. What kind of parent defends that kind of behavior from their child? A spoiled, rotten bee-ache. Apparently the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Close quote. And commenter u/Tiaradactyl de Wizard asks the real question. Open quote. Like, where's the embarrassment that your kid was such a heel? I'd have laughed in her face and said, I see where he gets it. Close quote. This. If someone called me to tell me my kid threw a tantrum over a bagel and ate cream cheese off a napkin, I would be mortified. I would apologize profusely and then go home and have a serious conversation with my child about gratitude and appropriate behavior as a guest. The fact that this mom is defending the behavior is insane. There's a whole tangent in the comments about kids being disrespectful to adults these days, and commenter Snoo Cheesecakes 2723 asks, open quote, do children talk back to adults in charge like this nowadays? I wouldn't have done this. My kids better not dream of it either. And if someone called me to say my kid had argued, talked back, and demanded a different bagel be procured, I'd have sunk into the ground or back into the hedge like Homer Simpson. Close quote. The Homer Simpson reference is perfect because, yes, that should be the appropriate level of embarrassment. Full body cringe, disappear into bushes, never show your face again. Commenter u/complex patient 4872 shares their own story about a bratty kid. Open quote, I offered to get pizza for my son and a friend because they were having fun, and the friend didn't want to go home yet. The friend tells me, at my house, my mother makes us nutritious home-cooked meals, and then gives me this smirk. I'm disabled and have a busy life, so while I admit don't cook much, I'm not having some 10-year-old talk to me like that. We mysteriously suddenly became busy and that little shit had to go home. Close quote. Good. That's exactly the right response. You don't get to be a snarky little jerk to the person who's offering you free pizza. Like, read the room, child. Commenter U Pumpkin Spice Mayhem has the perfect response. Open quote, cool, go home then, and an immediate drive back to his house. Close quote. Short, sweet, effective. Commenter u/Maleficent-Tap 1361 shares a story about their dad handling a rude friend. Open quote, open quote. Once, when I was a child, I had a friend over and she was being rude to my dad. I would never. He was strict and could get scary. He put us in the car and drove her back home. I got to watch from the car while he walked her up to her house and explained to her mother why our playday only lasted 30 minutes. Close quote. Legend. That's how you handle it. You don't tolerate disrespect in your own home. You escort the child back to their parents and explain why they're no longer welcome. There's this wild story from commenter Kikidelum. Open quote. My daughter and her friend, age 8, were messing with the cat biscuits. I said if they throw even one more, they had to eat it. Her friend threw one at me. She had to eat it, and when I told her mother, it was fine. Close quote. Cat biscuits. The kid had to eat cat food, and the mom was fine with it because actions have consequences. Commenter u/Riptoy points out, open quote, totally reasonable and appropriate. Cat biscuits may not taste amazing, but they're not toxic either. Close quote. I'm crying laughing at this whole thread. Like, these are the kinds of parents we need more of. Parents who actually hold their kids accountable instead of making excuses. There's a huge discussion about boy mom culture and how this mom is clearly one of those moms. Commenter U Silverdado says, open quote, that was exactly my thought. Some people just cannot fathom that they might be the asshole and that they're modeling that behavior every day. Close quote. The kid learned this entitlement from somewhere, and it's clearly from his mom, who thinks her precious baby deserves special treatment and should never be corrected or told no. Now, here's where I gasped out loud. Buried in the comments, someone asks how old these kids are, and the writer reveals the boys are 13 to 14 years old. I'm sorry, what? This entire time I thought we were talking about like 7 or 8-year-olds. An age where this behavior would still be unacceptable, but at least somewhat understandable because they're still learning. But 13, 14, commenter u/Grammatodo perfectly captures my reaction. Open quote. Okay, that's ridiculous. I thought maybe he was 6 or something. A teenager acting like this is unhinged. Close quote. Commenter u/Loafkidder adds, open quote, yeah, I genuinely thought it was a 7-year-old LMAO. Same, friend, same. The teenager. Having a meltdown over a bagel and eating cream cheese off a napkin with a knife. A teenager. Commenter u/shampoo open quote. Wait, hold up, these kids are teenagers? That was like a 7YO reaction. Close quote. And commenter u y baby 16154 predicts, open quote, wait until he goes to college or otherwise has roommates. I predict he'll get beat up often for his attitude. Close quote. Honestly, probably accurate. This kid is in for a rude awakening when he enters the real world and discovers that not everyone is going to cater to his every whim like his mom does. Commenter u/California Poops imagines the future. Open quote, you are legally required to feed me and I want what she's eating. Fine. Just cream cheese on a napkin then, teenage boy. Why'd you let him go hungry? Mother of teenage boy. Wow. Can you imagine this kid in interviews years later applying for jobs? Close quote. I'm cackling. Open quote. Yes, I'd like to apply for this position, but only if I can have the corner office. What do you mean I have to start at entry level? That's not fair. I'm going to call your boss and tell on you. Close quote. There's a brilliant observation from commenter you Nix by night. Open quote. Where do these kids get the brass neck? Also, I can't help but wonder if the extra bagel wasn't sesame seed and the kid hadn't seen the daughter eat it. Would he still have demanded a sesame, or would he have just not thought about it and eaten what was there? I think I can guess the answer. Close quote. Exactly. This kid probably doesn't even particularly like sesame bagels. He just wanted what someone else had. It's not about the sesame seeds. It's about control and entitlement. The writer actually confirms this in a comment. Open quote, I thought the same thing. I bet he doesn't even particularly like sesame seeds. He's just mad my daughter got the only one. I've known this kid for almost 3 years and can't remember him ever asking for something with sesame seeds in particular before yesterday. Close quote. So it's confirmed. This was never about actually wanting a sesame bagel. This was about wanting what he couldn't have and throwing a fit when he didn't get his way. Commenter use heavy law 98ADU nails it. Open quote. He 100% zoomed in on the one odd bagel and demanded it to show his authority because he is the boss at home. Close quote. Yep. Yep. This is a power play. He's used to being in charge at his house, and he tried to pull that same energy in someone else's home. Spoiler alert, it didn't work. Commenter Yudakuda has a delightfully petty suggestion. Open quote, I would only offer him sesame seed bagels from now on. Close quote, I love this energy. Open quote, oh, you wanted a sesame bagel so bad? Here, have all the sesame bagels. Every single time. Hope you're not sick of them. Close quote. There's discussion about what the appropriate response should have been, and commenter u/Intel Courier suggests, open quote, anytime a kid tries the it's not fair routine, just tell them they are learning a very valuable lesson while still young, and that is that life is not fair and won't ever be. Close quote, true words. Life ain't fair, kid. Better learn that now. Commenter you wonder adds, open quote, and the early bird gets the sesame bagel. Close quote, perfect. First come, first served. That's how the world works. Let's talk about the absurdity of the mom threatening to tell the wife. Multiple commenters are dying over this. Commenter you Nola Nuts, open quote, I love that she thinks she's going over your head to talk to your wife. Please let us know how that goes. Close quote, the writer responds with absolute gold. Open quote, joke's on her. I'm sleeping with the boss. Close quote. I am on the floor. This man really said, open quote, oh, you're going to tell my wife, the woman I'm married to and share a bed with? Good luck with that. Close quote. The confidence, the sass, the absolute lack of concern. Perfect. Commenter, use Wildwood Shadow says it best. Open quote. LMAO, NTA, Karen is going to speak to your manager. Close quote. And then there's speculation about what would happen if the mom actually follows through. Commenter uTerolf2112 points out, open quote, wonder if they know that the majority of people will take their partner's side when put on the spot. If someone came to me trying to tell me my wife did that, I'd bank her up and probably laugh for trying to go behind her back. Close quote, exactly. Like, what's the play here? Open quote, Mrs. Writer, your husband was mean to my son. Close quote. And the wife is just going to be like, open quote, okay, what do you want me to do about it? He's a grown man and also you're insane. close quote. Commenter used scuba rob ads, open quote, oh, I'd love it if this happened to me. My wife would absolutely tell her to go fuck herself. Of this, I have zero doubt. Close quote. I love functional marriages where partners have each other's backs. Now let's address the people who are hung up on the bagel choices. Some commenters think ordering onion and everything bagels for kids is weird. Commenter u slash lowcook55, open quote, kid was a huge brat, no reason why he couldn't have eaten the plain bagel. But IMO, onion and everything bagels for kids is a questionable choice. Close quote. Okay, but like, kids can eat onions? Everything bagels aren't that wild? Some kids like flavored bagels? This feels like a weird thing to focus on when the real issue is the bratty behavior. And and then there's the whole side tangent about having a sleepover on a school night, which honestly, fair question. Commenter, you, open quote. So is having a sleepover on a Sunday when the kids have school the next day. Weird story. Close quote. Multiple people are like, open quote, who does a sleepover on Sunday? Close quote, which is valid. That's definitely chaotic parenting energy. But also, the dad is flying solo while mom's out of town, so maybe he was just trying to keep the kids entertained and didn't think it through. Been there. Commenter, open quote, yeah, I was like, record scratch. Who has a sleepover on a school night? Close quote. But honestly, that's the least chaotic thing about this story. Sleepover on a school night, whatever. Teenager having a meltdown over sesame seeds, that's the main event. There's a whole discussion about whether this story is even real. Commenter, Myth Throwaway 2020, open quote, 2-hour-old account, my bullshit detector is going off, close quote. But commenter u slash mended slinky counters, open quote, it's quite common to use throwaways in this sub, so 2-hour doesn't really raise any flags for me. Sleepover on a Sunday, school night, is what's throwing it for me, close quote. And honestly, I'm choosing to believe this is real because it's too ridiculous not to be real. You can't make this up. Nobody would think, open quote, what's a good fake story? Oh, I know, bagel drama, close quote. Some commenters question the bagel choices from a different angle. Commenter used Greenzetza, open quote, I also don't personally understand why OP couldn't have asked the kids what they wanted. There's only 4 of them, and apparently they are old enough to engage in a debate about bagel equality, so why not just ask before placing the order? Close quote. Which, okay, fair point. But also, the writer was trying to make Monday morning easier by ordering ahead. And honestly, with 4 teenage boys, you're going to get 4 different answers, and someone's still going to complain. Can't win. Commenter u slash snook and r sneeze goes hard. Open quote. The whole thing is bullshit. What parent gets a box of bagels with plain, onion, and everything bagels along with cucumber, onion, and tomatoes for kids for breakfast? I did not want to make breakfast for 6 people is code for I have no idea what I'm doing as a parent feeding kids for breakfast. So I'm going to get a baker's dozen box of bagels from Einstein because that's what I see in my corporate office job every once in a while. Close quote. Okay, this is harsh, but also kind of funny. Like, yeah, this does seem like dad ordered from the corporate catering menu energy. But also, who cares? It's breakfast. The kids got fed. Well, they could have gotten fed if Sally wasn't being ridiculous. Now let's get to the verdict because there's overwhelming consensus here. Commenter u slash yoink, open quote, NTA, kid is a brat that is used to getting whatever he wants. Mom's reaction backs that up, close quote. Troublesome fox, open quote, he's acting like a brat because his mother clearly lets him act like a brat. If someone was nice enough to order in food for my kid and they kicked up a fuss like that, they'd be getting another earful from me when I heard about it, close quote. Commenter you secret A2D8, open quote, NTA. If my kid is acting like this, I would wholeheartedly support an adult calling them a brat. If the kid respectfully said they did not like bagels, that would be completely different, and I'm sure OP would have been accommodating. Close quote. This is the key point. If Sally had politely said, open quote, I'm sorry, I don't really like these bagel flavors. Do you have any cereal or toast? Close quote, that would be completely different. But that's not what happened. He demanded a specific bagel, kept arguing when told it wasn't available, insisted it wasn't fair, demanded the host go buy him a different bagel, and then ate cream cheese off a napkin to prove a point. Commenters, the last Mongo. Open quote, yeah, mine went to his first sleepover recently, and if I'd been told this by the other parents, I'd have ripped him a new one and had him apologize, not defend his right to be ass. Close quote. This is normal parenting. When your kid messes up, you correct them. You don't defend their bad behavior. Commenter u/m concerto, open quote. Yep, me too. My child would have been taught the rules of being a gracious guest. Unless you are allergic, shut up and eat. Close quote. Facts. There are exactly two acceptable reasons to not eat what you're offered as a guest. One, you're allergic. Two, it violates your dietary restrictions, religious, medical, ethical. Open quote. I don't like sesame seeds doesn't count when there are 12 other bagels available. Close quote. Commenter use Strange Explorer 780 gets to the real consequence. Open quote. Plus this brat demanding that the dad go get him a sesame bagel, he'd never be invited back. Close quote. And honestly, that's probably what's going to happen. This kid burned a bridge over a bagel. Hope it was worth it, Sally. Multiple commenters mention the I'm gonna tell your wife threat as the cherry on top of this ridiculous Sunday. Comment to SJ Klin, open quote, is this just an update on the old you just wait until your father gets home threat said by mothers back in the days? Close quote. Except it's even more ridiculous because this isn't even his mom. This is some random lady thinking she has authority over another adult because, why exactly? Because her son acted like a brat and got called out for it. The comments about what should happen next are gold. Commenter u/optimal teaching in Dine Open quote, you do have to let us know if your wife called her an arsehole and the kid is a brat. Close quote, we need an update on this. Did the mom actually call? What did the wife say? I'm dying to know. Commenter u piss liberal granny. Open quote, seriously, I need an update me for this one. Close quote, same. I need to know how this played out. Now, let's talk about the real lesson here, which several commenters picked up on, Contra U Fanpon 9. Open quote, and now you have a tiny sliver of an idea what teachers go through when reporting troublesome behavior to these types of parents. Close quote. Oh my God, yes. Teachers deal with this constantly. Kid acts up in class, teacher addresses it, parent calls and defends the bad behavior. Open quote, my little angel would never. You must be lying. Close quote. And then the teachers are like, open quote, lady, your kid just threw a chair at another student and you're mad at me? Close quote. This is why teachers are so underpaid and overworked. They're not just teaching, they're dealing with entitled parents who think their children are perfect and everyone else is the problem. Multiple commenters share their own experiences with bratty kids. Commenter u/Cami44 shares a story about a carpool kid who refused to wear a seatbelt. Open quote, I had a kid in my carpool that took off her seatbelt and refused to put it back on. I pulled over and told her to put it back on or we wouldn't be moving. We can sit here as long as she wanted. I knew telling her mom wouldn't make a difference. She was a brat. Close quote. Good. You don't negotiate with tiny terrorists. You pull over and wait them out. Commenter Yush named after noon shares. Open quote. My mom once stopped the car and made a carpool kid get out and walk back to pick up the trash he'd thrown out the window. She refused to keep going until he did it. The kid was pissed, but luckily the mom was 100% on board when she found out. Close quote. This is proper parenting. The kid did something wrong, got corrected, and the mom supported the correction instead of defending the bad behavior. Commenter Low-Key Creative shares the wildest story about a kid who complained about being served Little Caesars pizza and Dr. Pepper and said he'd, open quote, never eat something so low quality. Close quote. I'm sorry. What? A child turned down free pizza because it wasn't fancy enough? And then went and complained to his parents that he was being starved? The entitlement. Commenter U's legitimate mess 9604 has the right attitude. Open quote. If I ever found out my kids behaved this way, oh, trust me, it would never be happening again. My child would be apologizing to you like their life depended on it and not be allowed play dates until he could take his head out of his ass and realize you thankfully take what you're offered. Close quote. This is how you raise kids who aren't entitled jerks. You hold them accountable. You make them apologize. You have consequences for bad behavior. Now let's address the people who think the writer should have handled it differently. Some commenters think he should have just let it go and not called the kid a brat. But here's the thing. Sometimes kids need to be called out. If every adult just lets bad behavior slide because, oh, well, not my kid, not my problem, then these kids never learn that their behavior is unacceptable. The writer didn't yell, he didn't curse, he didn't insult the kid, he simply stated a fact. Open quote, stop acting like a brat, close quote. And you know what? That kid was acting like a brat, objectively, by definition. There's no other word for it. Commenter uSpaghet3 makes a brilliant observation. Open quote, it's a catch-22. The kind of person who would be okay with another adult calling their bratty kid a brat is probably not going to raise a bratty kid. And the kind of person who would get combative with another adult calling their bratty kid a brat is probably raising a brat. Close quote. The parents who would handle this situation appropriately are the ones whose kids wouldn't act like this in the first place. And the parents who raise bratty kids are the ones who get defensive when someone points it out. Some commenters suggest the writer should have just offered different food, but he did. There were vegetables. There was cream cheese, which the kid literally ate off a napkin. There were other bagels. The kid had options. He chose not to eat. Commenter u/Barbie and Quiet sums it up perfectly. Open quote, NTA, he had food and options and kept escalating over something already eaten. That's brat behavior, whether you phrase it nicer or not. Maybe brat isn't diplomatic with someone else's kid, but honestly, most adults would have snapped by that point. Also, eating cream cheese off a napkin just to prove a point is wild. Close quote. The cream cheese napkin thing is truly what sends this into another dimension. That's not normal kid behavior. That's, open quote, I'm going to do something bizarre to prove how upset I am behavior, close quote. Now let's talk about what this situation reveals about parenting and entitlement. This kid has clearly been raised in an environment where he gets what he wants when he wants it. When he encounters a situation where he can't have exactly what he wants, he doesn't know how to cope. He escalates, he argues, he demands, he throws a fit. And instead of teaching him to handle disappointment gracefully, his mom reinforces this behavior by defending him, blaming the host, and threatening to tattle to the wife. She's not doing her kid any favors. She's setting him up to be an entitled adult who thinks the world owes him sesame bagels on demand. Commenter u/David Zenzi Ghost shares how different things were in their generation. Open quote. This post makes me feel old. When I was young and our friend group had sleepovers, the parents were not the kind to play around. If any of us acted up or caused problems, our parents would be called and told to come pick us up. Then they'd say stuff like, you better teach your kid to act right or they can't come back. You did not want that phone call to happen. It was not in your best interest. Close quote. And honestly, we need more of this energy. We need parents who hold their kids accountable instead of making excuses. We need adults who are willing to correct children's behavior even when they're not the parent. It takes a village to raise a child, but only if the village is actually allowed to parent instead of just watching kids run wild because nobody wants to deal with defensive parents. So is our writer the asshole? Hell no. Not even a little bit. Not even 0.001%. This man generously hosted a sleepover, ordered plenty of food for everyone, tried to accommodate everyone's needs, remained calm while being argued with by a teenager, set reasonable boundaries, accurately described bratty behavior as bratty, didn't go off on the kid even though he probably wanted to. The kid complained about free food, argued with the host, demanded special treatment because he's a guest, refused multiple reasonable alternatives, demanded the host leave and buy him a specific bagel, ate cream cheese off a napkin like a psychopath, told an adult they can't call him out. The mom defended inexcusable behavior, blamed the host instead of her kid, claimed there wasn't enough food when there objectively was, threatened to tell on a grown man to his wife, failed to teach her child basic manners. The math is mathing, and it's not looking good for Team Sesame. Not the asshole. The writer handled this with way more patience than most people would have. He provided food, gave the kid multiple options, stayed calm during the argument, and only called out the behavior when it became completely unreasonable. The kid is a brat. That's just a fact. And the reason he's a brat is because his mom lets him be a brat. She's raising him to think he's entitled to special treatment and that any pushback against his demands is unfair. That kid is going to have a rough time in the real world when he discovers that nobody cares about his feelings regarding bagel distribution. Wait until he gets his first job and his boss tells him no. Wait until he has roommates who don't cater to his every whim. Wait until he tries this energy with someone who isn't as patient as our writer. Life is going to hit him like a truck, and it's going to be his mom's fault for not preparing him. As for the threat to tell the wife, I'm begging for an update on this. Did she actually call? What did the wife say? Did she laugh in her face? Did she tell her the kid was acting like a brat? I need to know. My prediction, if the mom actually follows through and calls, the wife is going to back up her husband, probably laugh at the absurdity of the situation, and possibly tell this woman that her kid isn't welcome back. Because that's what partners do. They have each other's backs, especially when one of them is clearly in the right. And honestly, even if there's some consequence, which there won't be, it was worth it. Sometimes you have to call out bad behavior. Sometimes kids need to hear from adults other than their parents that they're acting inappropriately. Sometimes the village needs to actually do some parenting. The writer did nothing wrong. The kid acted like a brat. The mom is enabling bratty behavior. And somewhere, there's a sesame bagel that started all this drama, blissfully unaware of the chaos it caused. To our writer, you are not the asshole. You're a patient man who tried his best to accommodate an unreasonable child. You provided plenty of food, stayed calm, and only snapped when the behavior became truly ridiculous. You don't owe this kid anything. You definitely don't owe him a special trip to get a sesame bagel, and you especially don't owe his mom an apology. That kid needed to hear that he was acting like a brat. Maybe it'll stick, maybe it won't, but at least you tried. And hey, silver lining, you now know which kid not to invite to future sleepovers. Problem solved. Also, please update us on what happens when the mom talks to your wife. We're all dying to know how that goes. My money's on your wife laughing and telling her to kick rocks. Stay strong, keep being a reasonable parent, and never apologize for setting boundaries with other people's kids when they're in your home acting ridiculous. And to Sesame Seed Sally, grow up, eat a plain bagel, and maybe work on your entitlement issues before you end up on Reddit again for arguing with your college roommate about who gets the top bunk or something equally ridiculous. Not the asshole. Case closed. The people have spoken. Go forth and continue being a reasonable human being who doesn't tolerate bratty behavior over breakfast pastries.